Final score, Reds 1, Colt 45-0. Okay, that sounds like a normal baseball game. A tight one. A pitcher's duel. Somebody blooped a single. Somebody hit a sacrifice fly. Somebody made a mistake. Good night. Except, except the Reds didn't get a hit. Not one. Not even a bad one. Not one where he hit it where they ain't. Not a C&I single. Not a broken bat. Not a statistically that's a hit. Nothing. 0 hits. 1 run. And if you're already mad at the sport for allowing that sentence to exist, good. Because that's the whole point of this episode. This is the Ken Johnson game. Welcome back to Astros 100. This is episode 03. Our lens is Ken Johnson. Right here. Ken Johnson. The date is Thursday night, April 23rd, 1964. Cincinnati 1, Houston 0. Today's idea, Houston can make you pay. Baseball can make you pay without ever touching you. And I'm going to say the line that has to go live in every script from now on. I'm documenting one game per player until I reach 100. This one's a live read, no clips, no music, no highlights, no overlays. Just the story and the box score in plain English, till it hurts. Zoom out for a second. It's early. 10 games, 9 games territory. Coming into this one, the Reds are 5-4, the Colt 45s are 4-5. And that matters because early season baseball has this weird emotional math. Every game feels like 10 games because you don't have any other evidence yet. The 1964 Reds are legit, pennant contender legit. They finished 92-70, tied for second, 1 game out. They've got Frank Robinson in the middle of the order. They've got Vada Pinson. They've got a baby-faced pest named Pete Rose, who is 1963's National League Rookie of the Year and is already the emotional center of everything Cincinnati does. And they're doing all that under a manager who is privately, then publicly, fighting for his life. The Colt 45s are still new, 3rd season of existence. Colt Stadium, expansion team reality. They finished 66-96, 9th place. But bad isn't the full story, because Houston already has pillars starting to form. Nellie Fox is here, late career, but still Nellie Fox. Pete Reynolds is a professional hitter. Jim Wynn's about to become Jim Wynn. And on this night, on this mound, you get one of the best single-game pitching performances the franchise ever produced, even before they changed the name to Astros. Which brings me to, if you're new here and you're thinking, wait, why are we calling them the Colt 45s in an Astros series? Because time's slippery. This is the same franchise, same DNA, same city, same future. But in 1964, they're still wearing the old name, still playing in Colt Stadium, still living in the pre-Astrodome era. So if I accidentally say Astros at some point tonight, I'm not wrong. I'm just early. Back to the game. Here's the funniest part about baseball history. On the same day one pitcher loses a no-hitter, the rest of the league is just doing Thursday. The MLB scoreboard for April 23rd, 1964 is just Wednesday. St. Louis ends up winning the National League by 1 game, and everyone's living inside that kind of season. Cincinnati is in the middle of a season that becomes emotionally heavy in a way the standings can't really show. Fred Hutchinson is running Cincinnati while dealing with a terminal lung cancer diagnosis that becomes public in early January 1964. It's not a fun trivia note. It changes how you hear every quote. It changes how you watch every close game. There's a line from his press conference. He describes it as having the rug jerked out from under you. That's the emotional weather over Cincinnati that season. Harry Kraft is Houston's first big league manager, literally the first one in franchise history. He played for the Reds back in his own playing days, which is a weird little echo in this matchup. Cincinnati fingerprints everywhere. Starting pitcher, Cincinnati, Joe Nuxhall, the old left-hander, before he's the old left-hander on the radio. He debuted in the majors at 15 years old in 1944. That's still the youngest ever in the major leagues. And by 1964, he's a veteran who can absolutely still pitch. He just had a strong 1963, including a 15-8 season and a 2.61 earned run average. He's still good enough to go 9 when everything's clean. Houston's starting pitcher, Ken Johnson, 30 years old, right-handed, and this is not a thing most people remember. He's described in the record of this game as a knuckleball specialist. He's also pitching against a team that mattered in his life. The Saber Game account calls Cincinnati his former team. So this isn't just Reds versus an expansion team. It's past versus present, standing 60 feet, 6 inches apart. Let's read the lineups like it's a roll call. Cincinnati Reds starting lineup: Pete Rose, Chico Ruiz, Veda Pinson, Frank Robinson, Deron Johnson, Bob Skinner, Johnny Edwards, Leo Cardenas, Joe Nuxhall. Frank Robinson is a Hall of Famer. Pete Rose isn't in Cooperstown, but he's an all-time matchup all by himself. Houston Colt 45s, Eddie Casco, Nellie Fox, Pete Runnels, John Weekly, Bob Aspromonte, Jim Wynn, Jim Beauchamp, Jerry Grote, Ken Johnson. Nellie Fox is a Hall of Famer, a 15-time All-Star, MVP, Gold Gloves, the whole deal. So the whole all-time matchup inside this game is kind of sideways. It's not hitter versus hitter. It's not even pitcher versus pitcher. It's Ken Johnson versus a lineup that includes the most famous grinder of his era and one of the most famous glove and grit second basemen ever. And those two names, Rose and Fox, are about to touch the exact same inning. No real rivalry here yet. The Colt 45s have existed for about 5 minutes in historical terms, but there is a thread. Cincinnati's the real club, the contender, the old money. Houston's the new city, trying to prove it belongs. And Ken Johnson is throwing at a team he once belonged to. If there's talk back and forth, it's mostly implied. It's the quiet kind. Yeah, you're a contender. Now come hit this. If you've ever heard somebody say, you can't throw a no-hitter and lose, that person's not describing baseball. They're describing how baseball should work. A no-hitter is defined by hits allowed, not runs allowed, not by deserving it, and not by vibes. So when I say Ken Johnson throws a 9-inning no-hitter, I'm not being poetic. I'm being literal. According to MLB's own write-up on the topic, he's still the only pitcher to throw an official 9-inning no-hitter and still take the loss, which is why this game is a trapdoor in baseball history. Okay, pedantry aside, back to pain. Ken Johnson's full name is Kenneth Travis Johnson. He grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida, born June 16th, 1933. Here's one of my favorite small details about him. He was born left-handed, naturally left-handed, but his dad put the glove on the left hand and taught him to throw with the right. So he ended up a right-handed pitcher who still ate and wrote left-handed. He signs with the Philadelphia Athletic System as a teenager, left-handed, and grinds through the minors in the early 1950s. Serves time in the Army, then he comes back, keeps climbing. He debuts in the majors with the Kansas City A's, 1958. By the time Houston exists, he's exactly the kind of pitcher an expansion team wants. Tough, durable, capable of giving you a complete game. Not flashy, not afraid of a weird pitch mix. In 1964 specifically, he's pitching well enough that 10 days earlier, he beat these same Reds on opening day in Cincinnati. And that win was part of a personal streak going back to 1963, when he finished amongst the league leaders in earned run average. Also, the emotional backbone of his 1964 is brutal. He dedicates that opening day start to teammate and close friend, Jim Umbricht, who had died of cancer 5 days earlier. So when we walk into April 1964, we're already in a story about mortality, the thin line between skill and randomness, and what it costs to keep showing up. That's Ken Johnson walking to the mound. And what this meant to the focus player? This is the part where most sports stories try to be inspirational. But Ken Johnson's place in history is basically a cosmic prank. He pitches the best game of his life, and afterward, he says, grinning, that it's a heck of a way to get to the books. He also refuses the easy bitterness. He doesn't ask for sympathy. He frames it as, I feel worse for the other guys. And that's why this game sticks. Because the headline, it's absurd. No hitter, loss. But the man at the center's calm, decent, and almost embarrassed by the attention. 4 days later, he's on a CBS game called I've Got a Secret. And a panelist guesses the secret is that he threw a no-hitter and lost. That's what this game did to his life. It turned him into a trivia question without turning him into a cartoon. Here's the story of the game, play by play. Setting Colt Stadium, Houston. Night game. 5,426 in attendance. Game time 1 hour and 56 minutes. Brisk. Both pitchers go the distance. Nuxhall, 9 innings, 5 hits, 0 runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Johnson, 9 innings, no hits, 1 run, 0 earned, 2 walks, 9 Ks. Read that again slowly. Now let's walk it. Top 1. Ken Johnson starts this game by striking out Pete Rose, swinging. And that matters because Rose is going to be the central character later. It's always funny when the story begins with the ending pretending not to exist and hiding in plain sight. Chico Ruiz flies out, Veda Pinson walks, first real base runner. Frank Robinson strikes out looking, no hits, but also no fear. Bottom 1, Houston answers. Eddie Casco lines out, then Ellie Fox singles to center. Here's the shape of Houston's offense all night. Little chances, little edges, then something snaps because Fox gets caught stealing second. Center to second base. Runnels walks. Weekly grounds into a force. You can feel the kind of game it's going to be. Both teams are trying to steal inches, and the inches are slipping through their fingers. Top 2, Deron Johnson grounds out. Bob Skinner grounds out. Johnny Edwards strikes out. But no hits, still clean. Bottom 2, Aspromonte singles, and then line drive double play behind the runner. Jim Wynn hits a liner that turns into 2 outs. Beauchamp strikes out looking. Nuxhall's sharp, efficient. The left-hander is not here to be part of the weirdness. He's here to win a normal baseball game. Top 3, Cardenas pops out. Nuxhall strikes out. Rose grounds out. Ken Johnson's stacking outs like he's building a wall. Bottom 3, 3 ground outs. Grote, Johnson, Casco. This is where the dual vibe locks in. No drama, just discipline. Top 4, Ruiz bunts, gets thrown out. Pinson pops out, Robinson strikes out. At this point, if you're in the stands and you're paying attention, you start to do the math. No Reds hits, no Reds hard contact, not even warning track. It's all infield. And Ken Johnson's not walking the park. Just 2 walks all night, both on full counts. Bottom 4, Fox flies out, Runnels singles, and then Weekly grounds into a double play. That's the game in a nutshell. Houston gets a chance, then Cincinnati slams the door. Top 5, Deron Johnson strikes out, Skinner walks, Edwards flies out, Cardenas strikes out. The Reds don't hit, but they do make them work. They do take pitches. They do exist. Bottom 5, Aspromonte flies out, Wynn strikes out, and Beauchamp grounds out. Nuxhall's cruising. Top 6, Nuxhall grounds out, Rose grounds out, Ruiz strikes out looking. This is the inning where you start thinking, okay, if it happens, but you don't say it because baseball punishes you for saying it. Bottom 6, Grote strikes out, Johnson pops out in foul territory, and Casco flies out. Both pitchers are still throwing like it's the first inning. Top 7, Pinson grounds out, Robinson grounds out, Deron Johnson strikes out. And according to the Saber account, by now Ken Johnson knows exactly what's happening. He's aware he has a no-hitter. He asked Don Notabart, who'd already thrown the first no-hitter in franchise history, well, how's a guy supposed to feel? Notabart tells him basically, stay loose and keep going, which is perfect advice, and also impossible advice. Bottom 7, Houston's big mid-game chance. Fox singles. Then Pete Runnels reaches on an error. E6. Fox ends up at third. Now you can feel it. First and third, nobody out. 0-0. This is where the home team is supposed to scratch one across. This is where the no-hitter is supposed to become a win. Weekly hits into a fielder's choice double play that wipes out the threat. Then Astromonte flies out. Houston gets nothing. And the win probability chart does that little shrug. Well, still tied. Bottom 8, Houston's best clean shot. Now this is the inning that haunts you if you're Houston. Jim Wynn leads off, doubles into center. Nobody out, runner on second. 0-0. Beauchamp strikes out, Grote pops out. Now it's 2 outs. The pitcher comes up. Ken Johnson hits a deep fly to left field. Deep enough, the Saber account describes it as a 365-foot drive that dies at the fence in Bob Skinner's glove. That's the moment where the game stops being duel, starts being a curse. Because if that ball carried 10 more feet, we're living in a different timeline. Instead, Wynn stranding at second. Top of the ninth, it's the inning that breaks baseball. Top 9, 0-0. Ken Johnson's 3 outs from a no-hitter and a shutout. Joe Nuxhall grounds out, 1 out. Then Pete Rose comes up, drops a bunt on the third base side, right in front of the plate. Ken Johnson charges, fields, throws to first, throws it away. Error. Rose reaches. He's credited to second base. Immediately, the game turns into an argument about the official score. Houston coach Jimmy Adair asks the first base ump if Rose would have beaten the throw. The ump says, "Not my job," and Adair gets ejected for what the Sabre story politely redacts as chicken blankety blank. This is what gets under my skin. In the most fragile, historic, nerve-rattling kind of game, the emotional explosion isn't about a bat flip or a fight or a hard slide with spikes up. It's about a guy asking, "Well, what, have you been safe?" And an ump saying, "I don't have to tell you." It's that tone, that little power trip posture, because that's baseball's true villain, not the opponent, the bureaucracy of the moment. Okay, I'm fine. I'm not fine. Moving on. Back to the inning. Rose on second. Chico Ruiz hits a line drive that smashes off Johnson's shin. The Sabre account says it left a bruise like a plum. Aspermonte fields it, throws first to get Ruiz, while Rose takes third. 2 outs now. No hitter still alive. Shutout still alive. 1 out away. Vada Pinson hits a routine grounder to second. It finds Nellie Fox. And Fox, one of the surest gloves of his era, boots it. Rose scores. Pinson reaches. That's the run, and that's the only run. That's a run with no RBI. It's unearned. Frank Robinson lines out to Jim Wynn. End of the inning. Reds lead 1-0. 0 hits. And the Sabre account adds a detail that makes this even harsher. Johnson admits he couldn't have gone to extra innings anyway because of the shin injury. So even maybe we'll walk it off and you'll finish it, fantasy has a crack in it. Bottom 9, Houston's last gasp. Down 1-0, Casco strikes out, Fox strikes out. 2 outs, nobody on. Season still young. History still hanging in the air like smoke. Pete Reynolds hits a ground ball. The throw to first is wild. Error. Reynolds reaches. There's even drama around whether he was safe or out. One ump calls him out, and the home plate umpire overrules him. Cincinnati then plays the game under protest. Bob Lillis pinch runs, and then John Weekly strikes out looking. Ball game. For Cincinnati, this is a contender stealing a win on the road in the ugliest possible way. Nuxhall throws a 5-hit shutout and does his job like a pro. The defense survives its own errors, and the lineup wins without hitting. Honestly, that's almost a flex. For Houston, it's a loss that feels like theft, not because the Reds cheated. They didn't cheat, but because the sport itself quietly rewrote what deserve meant. It's also a signal flare. Houston might be a 96-loss team, but it can still produce a night like this. Afterward, Ken Johnson's almost smiling. He said he's got a niche in history, and he calls it a heck of a way to get to the books. Nellie Fox is devastated, near tears. He finds Johnson right away to apologize. Fox says, quote, "Ken, I'm sorry I had to mess it up," unquote. Johnson puts an arm around him and basically refuses to let him wear it. He tells Fox, "I put the guy on myself. I came up throwing. A good throw would have nailed him." That exchange is the emotional core of this game, because the box score makes it look like pitcher fails, fielder fails, team fails. But the 2 men inside it are trying to protect each other from the story. Johnson also says something else that's important. He doesn't want sympathy. He isn't bitter. He calls it the best game of his life. That's insane emotional control. Or maybe it's just what happens when you're living in a sport that can't be reasoned with. Now, as to how this season played out for each team after this game. Cincinnati's 1964 path, the Reds stayed it all year, finished 92-70, tied for second, 1 game behind St. Louis. Fred Hutchinson manages until his health forces him to step aside in August. He dies later that year. So this April win becomes one bead on a much heavier thread. A contender playing a full season with their manager's mortality sitting right beside them. Houston's 1964 path. They finished 66 and 96 again, still ninth place. The franchise is still building, but games like this are part of the foundation myth. Because when the team becomes the Astros, moves into the Astrodome, it's going to want history. It's going to want legends. And Ken Johnson, weirdly, he's one of them. Johnson's career and life after this game. Ken Johnson keeps pitching for years. He's ultimately traded by Houston, by then the Astros, to the Braves, 1965. He pitches for multiple clubs across a long career, and the Sabre game credits him with 18 seasons in pro baseball, a 91-106 record. He dies in 2015 at the age of 82. But the point isn't the transaction log. The point is that one night, one run, no hits, because the thing he carried forever. And what I respect is he carried it with class. For the next episode, next time, Bob Bruce. Different kind of pitcher, different kind of night. We're going to go from a no-hitter that turns into a loss to the kind of game that reminds you what a complete game shutout feels like when the night actually breaks your way. That's Astros03, Reds 1, Colts 45-0. Ken Johnson, 9 innings, no hits, a loss. If you've ever needed proof that baseball is not a fair sport, but it is a perfect sport for storytelling, this is Exhibit A. I'm documenting one game per player until I reach 100. Tonight, the sport gave Ken Johnson a niche in history, then charged him for it anyway.